Hi and welcome. Thanks for joining me today. If you're new to my channel, my name is Meredith and I am the Sea Witch, your guide to the myths, mysteries, and magic of water. Today I'd like to share with you 4 special watery books that really helped shape my spiritual and magical practice. So I've been practicing witchcraft and studying and practicing the occult for almost 20 years now. And while I've always had a great love of books and reading, and I've always had quite a collection of books, it was about 20 years ago, of course, when I started to collect more occult and witchy books and books about shamanism and things like that. So today I would like to share with you 4 particular books that are focused on water, of course, in some context or another. And these are the books, some of the books, that really helped shape and inform both my spiritual and my magical practice and just really helped define the way I understand and approach water, which is really very special to me. In the future, I'd like to create a video where I share some more general occult and witchcraft books with you, but for today we've got some nice watery books for my fellow mermaids and mystics, so let's check them out. First, we have Sacred Water, The Spiritual Source of Life by Nathaniel Altman. Now, this is a really beautiful book and was one of the first, if not the first, I think, book that I got that like this, watery books, books that have to do with water spirituality, when I was coming to really understand my pull towards water and develop a water-based spiritual and magical practice. So this is what that explores. Is water the spiritual nature of water? This is kind of a spiritual travelogue meets survey of sacred water traditions. And the author takes us to holy wells, sacred springs, places of healing, and explores all the different rites and customs and traditions and rituals and offerings associated with water from different cultures all over the world, and ultimately just about how humans have related with and connected with water, which of course is pretty important to do. We're composed of water. We rely on water to survive, as pretty much all life does. So these are some of the chapters just to give you some ideas. Sustenance, civilization, sacred space, cleansing, healing, initiation, wisdom, enchantment, and protecting the waters. Sorry, getting over a bit of a cold. So my favorite chapter is that almost last chapter, second to last, enchantment. Because that's exactly it about water, as far as I'm concerned. I'm very enchanted by water, and I think everyone should be. I mean, it really is such a magical, mysterious, amazing, powerful substance that, again, we are made of. We're about 60% water. We completely rely on water for our survival. And it is still such a mysterious substance. There are so many things about water that science is just actually still pretty stumped. It doesn't behave the way it should behave. And I love that about it, among so many other things. So this opens with a very beautiful quote I'd like to read to you. "The great sea has sent me adrift. It moves me as the weed in a great river. Earth and the great weather move me, have carried me away, and move my inward parts with joy." And that comes from Uvavnuk, maybe I'm saying that right, an Inuit holy woman. Now, Altman begins this chapter by saying, "Humans have been enchanted with water since our earliest history. Water has moved us and left us delighted, surprised, and transformed. Water has inspired the vision of philosophers, musicians, religious leaders, poets, and artists." And he goes on to describe some artwork that was created by artists in various media depicting water, celebrating water. So if you want to incorporate some more water into your practice, and if you want to have some practices and traditions that are grounded in actual historical practices and traditions, this book is a great place to start. It has a lot of great examples of ways to see and understand and commune with water. Next, we have Gift from the Sea. And this is one of my very favorites. This is a beautiful book. Now, like the last one, this is not an occult or how-to book at all. This is not a witchcraft book, but think maybe a little bit more soulcraft. It's deeply philosophical, it's poetic. It is by Anne Morrow Lindbergh, who was actually married to the famous pilot Charles Lindbergh. And this was written in the 50s, which is pretty evident throughout the book, but it is still very relatable for even more modern women today who feel like they're being pulled in a million different directions. Um, so, obviously, this is not a witchcraft book, but it is very witchy. So, Anne Lindbergh goes to an island off the coast somewhere in the Northeast, I believe, and she spends about 3 weeks alone in a cabin on this little island. And she sits by the beach with a handful of shells and lets them teach her about solitude and relationships and the different tides in a woman's life. And yeah, that's quite witchy, which of course I'm sure she didn't realize. But there it is. Sometimes the best, most magical and witchy things are accidental or natural, are spur of the moment. One of my favorite my favorite chapter in this one actually is Moon Shell, which is also one of my favorite shells. And she writes about it beautifully. She gives a great meaning to it, which I totally agree with. She's basically doing, concomancy. And I did a whole video about concomancy. That's linked in the description below if you'd like to check that out. It's all about divination with seashells, which essentially is kind of what she's doing. Not exactly divination, but it is deriving meanings from the shells and learning from their energy. She says, "This is a snail shell, round, full, and glossy as a horse chestnut. Comfortable and compact, it sits curled up like a cat in the hollow of my hand. Milky and opaque, it has the pinkish bloom of the sky on a summer evening ripening to rain." She continues to describe it and things that it says to her, things that it means to her. Let's jump ahead a little bit. She says, "Solitude," says the moon shell. "Every person, especially every woman, should be alone sometime during the year, some part of each week, and each day." How revolutionary that sounds and how impossible of attainment. To many women, such a program seems quite out of reach. Again, something all modern women can really relate with. So that gives you an idea of each chapter, of each shell, of each lesson that it teaches her, and just everything that she experiences during this beautiful retreat, which would be so amazing, wouldn't it? Wouldn't we all love to do something like that? Yeah, very beautiful book. Can really feed your practice, especially if you love seashells, if you connect with seashells, and if you do see them as spiritual teachers. Now we get into the meat and potatoes, if you will, of this little list. This is The Way of the Water Priestess by Anwen Avalon. She is a Celtic witch and teacher. She has created a mystery school and is very Avalonian in her practice. That's very much her thing. Entering the world of water magic. So, where sacred water was, again, just kind of giving you a survey of various sacred views and traditions surrounding water around the world, this is very hands on and practical and will really bring an understanding, bring water into your practice in a very real way. There are rituals, of course, exercises, spells, incantations, meditations, a lot of wonderful information, some historical information. And really, this book is just great if you want to take things from "I love water" to "I have a devotional relationship with water as a living being." So this takes things a bit deeper than sacred water. So they really work well together in that way. And last but definitely not least, especially if you are a big myth and folklore nerd like me, if you love mermaids like me, you will love the Penguin Book of Mermaids, which is a treasure trove of mermaid stories from all over the world. Many in here I was familiar with, many have never heard of. A lot of the stories in here are translated into English for the first time. And there is also some commentary from the editors about things like gender roles and ecology and history and the ways that these stories reflected and maybe even helped shape a lot of those things in human culture and history. And this has some great obscure things. There's something in here, just a quick, not even really a story, but a nice mention of a hairy Chinese mermaid. Not three words you really expect to hear together, but there it is. Some fun, different, quirky things. And so this aquatic humanoid, apparently, she is covered in silky rainbow colored hair. Well, isn't that fun? And it makes me kind of think of Lady Rainicorn from Adventure Time. So lots of unique, interesting things like that in here. Now, I did a video about a Targatus, the first known mermaid in recorded lore, that is also linked in the description below. And there is really just the very literally briefest mention of her, like 2 or 3 words, where a Targatus is barely brought up. Which again is very surprising because she's the first mermaid. Should be in here, kind of a glaring error in my opinion. Also, I don't believe the Irish mermaid Liban, who I'll be doing a video about, I don't think she's in here either. But it's still great. It's still a wonderful source for all kinds of terrific stories. It's very interesting that there are mermaid stories, ideas of mermaids, even if they weren't always necessarily called mermaids, in all parts of the world. And again, very powerful, interesting symbol. Way more than people give it credit for. There's a lot more to mermaids than meets the eye, especially in modern times, in which people think very reductively about mermaids. Again, in the Atargatis video, I discuss how I see that as the ultimate representation of the divine feminine. So check that out. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you agree. Let me know if you love mermaids as much as I do. And there you have it. 4 very cool books that mean a lot to me, have meant a lot to my practice, that I hope maybe you'll check out and will mean as much to you as they have to me. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you're familiar with any of these, if you've read them, something similar, if you're gonna check them out, I'd love to know what you think. Thanks for spending time with me today. Hope to see you next time.